Looks like we're started. You ready to do this, Cobb?
Yep.
Hey, Cobb. I feel a suspension coming on.
Yeah, you're suspended.
Oh, whoa, dude. What did I do?
You're suspended for writing Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, Anthony Cumia, and Dan Le Batard into the opening.
Okay, I'll be suspended for FFP's singing, okay? Is that a good suspension?
Wait, yeah, that's good.
Okay. All right. Thought I'd negotiate it with you there.
It's tea time. It's TMV and P time.
Okay, FFP is suspended for P time. We don't need bathroom humor here.
Depending if you're listening or watching, we don't mind. It's tea time. It's TMV and P time.
And Cobb, you're suspended too for bathroom humor.
What ups?
As long as you're listening or watching, we don't mind. As long as you're listening or watching, we don't mind.
Welcome to the Tweeting Warrior videocast with Brad Hutchings and J. Cobb! We're videocasting live on YouTube today from 3 p. We're at 1 p.m. to about 2 p.m. Pacific. And we got a special guest host, Alex Hernandez, sitting in with us. Say hello to the folks, Alex.
Hey, man.
All right, we're going to have a great time today. If you're watching this, please share a link with your friends. How you doing, Cobb?
Great to be live on YouTube with the TMV, Brad. What's up, Alex?
What's up, Cobb?
Hey, everyone out there in Warriorland, welcome to the Tweeting Warrior videocast, home of the premier source of sports fan fiction.
Here's how to interact with us live. To tweet our show, hashtag the TMV. Or you can call us today at 949-347-5450. We'd love to have you. We've got Alex Hernandez, and we've also got Frank Drebin today.
So, hashtag your tweets, the TMV. Dial it in at 949-347-5450.
What's on our plate today, Cobb?
Winners of the week, Manuel and Gardena. Then, the three of us are going to go over this Tony Stewart thing. It's tragic, and it needs some clear thinking.
Actually, it's going to be the four of us, because Frank Drebin's with us today as well. But let's do it.
Booyah!
Okay, so you got your winners ready?
Yep.
All right, let's play the stinger, and we're in. Winners of the week.
Tuesday, he's a magic man. He's a hat-trick winner! Magic Man John Branch now has 3 Twitter hat-trick wins. Follow Magic Man John Branch on Twitter at John_Branch. You are a hat-trick winner. On Wednesday, we got our socks knocked off when Sock Drawer Hero took home his 6th Twitter hat-trick title. Follow Sock Drawer Hero on Twitter at Sock Drawer Hero. You are a hat-trick winner. Thursday. Carlos Garcia won his first Twitter hat-trick after grinding for weeks. Now, welcome to the Twitter hat-trick club. Only 18 more wins for a Hall of Fame induction. Follow Carlos on Twitter at Chuckamus Prime. You are a hat-trick winner. Cajun Cobb wants to know the recipe for a Sir Gumbo Twitter hat-trick crown. Well, you start with a good siroo. Now, Sir Gumbo has a bruised 4 Twitter hat-trick win. Follow Sir Gumbo on Twitter at Sir Gumbo. You are a hat-trick winner. Now Sir Gumbo has a 4 Twitter hat-trick win.
All right, just a sec. Gotta calm down one of the dogs. Be right back.
Hey, dog, calm down.
Come on. Let's go. Here you go. Everybody in. Everybody in. Let's go. Hey. Come on. Come on. Come on. Yeah, I guess we could have just gone right to Manuel and Gardena. Let me do that. Manuel and Gardena.
What up, D-Rad Hutchings, J to the Cobb.
Hopefully, man, you just put this entire message on the TMV or whatnot. Much props to everybody that's, followed me on Twitter. Little Manny says that's a good thing, so thank you guys very much. And I will be following all you cats too, man. It's more your love. We're all fam. Hopefully nobody got offended by Manny, like, just kind of saying, like a commercial for me, it sounded like to me. But
Okay, nobody got offended by Manny singing the commercial for you, because actually it was more of a commercial for me and Cobb. Don't you think, Cobb? Unmute and tell me.
Unmuted. Yes.
Okay, we'll continue with Manny.
he kind of just misconstrued the message, but it's all good. He's a good kid. So hopefully everybody understands. I'm not trying to, like, get big for my britches or nothing. I know I'm just a humble cat, loving the J Moore Sports, and it's all about J Moore Sports, J Moore, and the crew. So this is the wrap for this week, though. So enjoy. I do favors for you. Well, Jay, I had a court date. I had to flee due to issues with fleas. Ask buyer on top 3. That crazy lady did a GTA with narcs in the car. A butcher raises the stakes with needles. Wow. Are you for real? Yes. And I got a fat joint with Fresno Aaron and Twitter Chris's name on it. My boys Hip Hop Friday, the weekly holiday by Jay, Toodles, Ghost Hands, Werewolf, Rhino, Interns, and May. God help you if you mess with Coover or Schwartz. The Twitter Hat Trick Club is fam on J Moore Sports and TMV. Congrats, Becky. Hammond, Slam Man Slamming. Brian Wilson's beard is nesting baby birds that don't famine. Hammond, pool host, plotting with a clothes washer on his back. That's a fact. In his platform cleats while hitting monster jacks. Respect to LA Angels, but I'm Dodger Blue like J and AM 570. Derek Brooks is true to the game, but it's Raiders and Lakers on mine. Diamond Dan is online and would be SNL's all-time best host with celebrity guest host Jay Moore's. Odin's 144 because he's half sharp pay. I say scores will settle, but no titles will go to LeBron Love. Byron Scott and Jim Caviezel, I got to give it up. Hip Hop Fridays, the utter shiznit. With Cormier and Bones Jones, JJ stirs up the Bisquick, piece the brain, Ace Man on a Viernes. And Kelsey Butrell brings the flows bien fuertes. That's strong all day long. J Moore Sports, baby. Hit your bong.
Manuel's the best.
Damn.
That guy's amazing. No, it took like 3 takes. It was interesting to put together this morning because, like I said, I woke up, I was just completely tired out, not in my time zone, and yeah, I had to put that together. But he's a pro, you know. Like when he messes up, he'll call a callback, the call-in line, and re-record it and tell me exactly where he messed up and what to do.
What?
So,
really?
Oh, for real. He's
awesome.
great.
Awesome.
This won't make the podcast, but yeah, just a little behind the scenes there. All right, you two ready, Alex and Frank?
Yes, sir.
Wait.
Yep.
All right.
I'm here.
All right, let me drop the stinger here, and we'll go.
Brad and Cobb's take with help from Alex.
So we're doing a joint take today about Tony Stewart, and that's not joint like from Manuel and Gardena's weekly wrap-up.
He smokes bongs, not joints. This is
Right,
completely
right.
separate.
And not only that, it's not a pot ref. Okay, so this is a heavy subject, and it's the real definition of tragedy, and we'd like to cut through the noise that is the internet on this because it's been all over it.
We're joined by Alex Hernandez and the TMV racing expert and Twitter hat-trick member and Pizzaville Warrior, formerly known as Frank Drebin, Matt Garcia.
All right, let me
Say
drop
hello.
a little
How's it
stinger.
going?
Yeah.
Let me drop a stinger for Matt, and then Matt can say hello.
The TMV racing expert, Frank Drebin.
What up, Matt?
How's it going?
All pretty good.
Before we get into
Hi, Cobb.
hey, what's up, Matt? before we get into our takes, Matt, I was wondering if you can give us a brief summary of the events in last night's sprint kart race that killed Kevin Ward Jr.
Well, last night him and Tony Stewart were racing. They're racing pretty hard, and it appears that Tony Stewart may or may not have made contact with him to spin him out in his race night. But he got out of the car, obviously frustrated, and he wanted to express his frustration toward Tony, which I've seen Tony do plenty of times at Bristol and other short tracks. And it looked like Tony's car may have drifted up to the track while he was walking toward it, and he got ran over by the tire and thrown a pretty good distance, and that resulted in his death. And all the events were canceled after that, and Tony Stewart's not racing today because of it, and there's an ongoing investigation.
Okay, are Sprint Cups? Yeah, are Sprint Cups a part of NASCAR? Are they aligned? Are they? No,
there's no affiliation. This was actually an Lucas Oil Empire Super Sprint event, which is the governing body of these cars that were racing last night, and they're part of affiliated with USAC. It's its own body. It's separate from NASCAR. So
right, and Tony Stewart,
not affiliated at all.
Tony Stewart, I understand, actually owns a dirt track in, if I'm correct, Ohio, and
yeah, he owns. Yeah,
Despite being on the NASCAR circuit every weekend with the big cars, he really loves this dirt track stuff, competes in a whole season. A year ago, he actually broke his leg in a crash in one of these, which set him back quite a bit in his racing pursuits. So this is not just a flash in the pan thing of him showing up there just to hot dog it. I mean, this is part of his deal, basically. Is that correct?
Yeah, he enjoys doing it, and the tracks, they get such a huge turnout when he shows up. So, of course, they give him a little money, and he gets to show off his dirt track skills.
Got it. A couple other questions for you. Drivers on the track, you've raced. What goes on with that? It doesn't seem like a good idea. People getting out of their cars and standing on the track, but what's the official word that the tracks usually hand down on that? What kind of training do you get?
Well, usually in NASCAR, they have two-way radios that the drivers can contact the crews, but I think in sprint cars themselves, they only have a one-way radio, which is the track judge and maybe a spotter who's telling them what's around them at the time. But the track judge usually comes over the radio and tells them there's a caution, certain turn, in this case it would be turn 2, to avoid it, stay to your left as much as you can, and let the track crew do their business. But usually I've been in drivers' meetings before where they mention stay in your car until safety crews arrive. And this guy really didn't pay attention, and most drivers don't. Some of them get out, and they're always pissed off, it seems like, so they just want to get back to the track, the pits, as fast as they can, so they just run out. But this guy is pretty pissed, and I don't blame him. But there's really no rule itself. It's just kind of a gentleman's agreement, gray area in a rule book where you gotta pay attention to safety.
How do you think this will be addressed by rules?
What's that?
How do you think this will be addressed by rules in the near, pretty much in the immediate future? It seems like anybody running a race is going to have to address this kind of thing. What do you think they end up doing?
I'm sure that at NASCAR a few years ago they started a rule where you stay in your car until the pace car slows down the rest of the field. So that's for the safety of the driver, because there's been accidents before where they've been unbuckling and a car just comes, sideswipes them and kills them. But I think in here they're going to make these drivers stay in the car and have an escort to an ambulance, to the safety crew, to the safety vehicle escorting you out to the track. So that's probably going to be a new rule. It might take effect immediately. I think it happened before like that.
Right.
Caution speeds. What kind of, when they're told to drive under caution, because I guess as they came around the turn again, they were all driving under caution. What kind of, can you compare that to the race speeds coming around that turn and the caution speeds? The speed at which Tony Stewart would have hit this guy?
Well, I'd say the corner speed I usually take under the green flag is, I don't know, it's pretty fast, between 70 and 80 miles an hour. I want to say they were probably going about between 45 and 40 miles an hour maybe. But an initial report I read online said that Tony was trying to startle him a bit, just like joke around with him and press the gas and kind of like whip the back end of the car toward him, just to scare him out of the way. But what people don't realize is that these sprint cars are probably the fastest cars that go in left-hand turns. They got about 900 horsepower and they only weigh, I want to say, less than 2,000 pounds. So they're really quick, and that right rear tire is the biggest tire you'll see in most motorsports, with the exception of Top Fuel drag racing.
Yeah,
and there's also
regular. Go ahead,
Brad. I was just gonna say, they say that these tracks are also wet. So if he was trying to do, if Tony Stewart was trying to be cute, there's a chance there that he could lose control and fishtail. And it looks like Kevin was rolled under the right rear tire. Did you hear anything about the track being wet, Matt?
They wet. Well, on dirt tracks, between races, they'll sometimes send a water truck out there and wet the track itself because it's actually clay. Sometimes it's clay, sometimes it's dirt combination.
Okay.
To kind of like mold it and make the driving line more accessible and make it wider. So they'll wet it sometimes, so it's always slick, and these cars are constantly out of control. And,
how about lighting, Matt? Ward was wearing a dark suit. The first car that passed him seemed to steer out of the way quickly, as if the driver was a little bit surprised that there was a person standing in the middle of the road. What's your take on that, and whether Tony Stewart might not have even seen him, or not seen him until a point where he could really avoid him, or whatever.
Yeah, well, they're usually pretty well lit, but I could understand someone in a dark suit, the dark helmet, walking across a dark mud track, being hard to be seen. So
right, certainly from the vantage point of a driver.
Yeah, and these guys, they sit so low, and the peripheral vision is so small because the helmet covers so much of the face that he might not have seen him at all.
What about the vehicle blocking his view? Doesn't part of the cage or part of the vehicle block an angle or two, or just like a right side or something?
There's a couple posts. I'm not sure what it's called, sprint cars, but I know there's an A post, which is a post directly in front of you, which are two bars that basically protect your head from bouncing outside of the car, and that would be to your, I want to say about your 2 o'clock, maybe 1 o'clock in your peripheral vision. So yeah, that bar might have completely covered him up.
Alex, do you have any questions for Matt that he could answer in technical questions about this?
No, I'm still coming to grips with the fact that this wasn't the joint take you promised, but
no kidding, huh?
Considering I know not one thing about car racing,
that's why we got Matt.
I'm interested to see what Matt thinks as time goes on, because it's already shaping up. I mean, Brad, which direction I'm going to take this in terms of my constant harping on the lack of nuance within our entire culture, to be honest, but particularly within media. And it's already shaping up to be a debate where only one of two things can be possible. And I'm wondering, with somebody that's familiar with car racing on different levels, if it's possible that, both things are possible. That yes, okay, he shouldn't have gotten out of the car. That being said, the video looks, from my eyes, again, from my untrained car racing eyes, the video looks bad. And I've read the same things that Matt read about dirt track racers having a good understanding of, when you hit that accelerator pretty hard, you're going to fishtail, and that he may have been just trying to give him a little love tap, and obviously that went horrifically wrong. So I'm wondering, from somebody with experience, if both of these premises, which will be debated for the next week, if it can be possible that they're both true. That, A, he shouldn't have gotten out of the car. That being said, this dude is in, a car revving an engine with a guy, running around the track. And I'm not talking about whatever punishment he'll get, jail time. I don't believe any of that will happen. But I'm just saying, within that culture, can both things be true?
Frank?
Yeah, both of them can be true. I mean, you obviously don't want to get out of the car around these cars, but I think that this kid was so frustrated that he had to make an expression. He had to make a point across, and that went wrong. So I actually forgot what the question was.
No, I'm just wondering how people in that culture are debating it, because I don't trust the larger debate. When ESPN decides all of a sudden that it's going to have its debate, there's no nuance, it's very simplistic. So I'm wondering, those that follow, those that are really into it, what debate they are having, because I don't believe it's the same debate that I'm going to see on First Take tomorrow, because I just don't believe Stephen A. Smith watches car racing, but that's just my opinion.
I'm Stephen A. Smith. You do not get out of the car. You never get out of the car.
Yeah.
Right. Skip will have the other take. Exactly.
And they'll both be suspended.
Well, from racing, people are obviously going to say that you're a race car driver. You're supposed to know what's around you constantly, even under caution. But I don't know. It's kind of weird where it's going to go from here, because all they're saying is being investigated. It's being investigated. So we're going to wait for Tony Stewart to tell us what he saw and what he said happened before that occurred.
Right.
So.
Well, he's cooperating with authorities right now. He's spoken with the authorities in upstate New York. He's given a public statement on the incident. He's pulled himself out of the race out Watkins Glen today. So post tragedy, he seems to be in order with what somebody would be doing in terms of a mess like this. I have a personal question for you, Matt. How upset, how angry have you gotten in a race car?
I haven't raced enough or been competitive enough to be upset, but I've worked with crews, and actually last November I was working down in Irwindale, and the driver I was working for split another car out, and there was about a 40-person brawl that I was involved in the pit.
Really?
And it's just, there's so much emotion, because one, when you're racing locally like this is your family's money you're basically using. I mean, his dad might be getting off work and coming home to work on his race car, and that's why there's so much involved, or so much emotions involved, because
let me stop you there. Kevin Ward, he was depending on who you believe, he was either 17 or 20 years old. I don't think they've straightened that out yet. He has been, according to his website, he's been racing for 14 years. He started racing when he was 4, his first race, in a little go-kart thing or whatever else. He came in second. His family has been behind him the whole way. His dad had been, his mechanic and his trainer and all that, come with him to just every event that he's ever done. This was their family deal. That certainly weighs into this a lot. You would,
and there's also the financial. There's also the finances involved. These sprint car races generally only have purses. Well, not purses, but they have winnings of only about $3,000. Where Tony Stewart, he's a multimillionaire. He is the team owner of his own NASCAR racing team. And Kevin Ward Jr., it's like Brad was saying, that's his family's money. A $3,000 purse, or take a $3,000 take home would be substantial in regards to his up and coming career.
And he has some fairly reasonably moderately big name sponsors. I think it's probably a good business proposition for them, and they're probably not panhandlers to get into a hobby like this in the first place.
No, not at all.
Parents get into this with their kids. They've got some, they've got cash to burn, or they're working hard in order to have cash to burn on it. That's for sure. But still, it's definitely their own.
You got to
money going
imagine
into this.
You got to imagine what it would have done for this kid's career had he said, "Oh, I beat Tony Stewart this night."
Yeah, definitely.
Or what it would have done for him, and so his emotions in the car were probably twice what they normally are.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Matt.
No
Right?
problem.
Thank you so much. We had some other points to discuss here too. Alex has got these in front of him, and so does Cobb. Criminality. I think there's a lot of people that the immediate reaction on Twitter was, well, obviously he tried to hit the guy. He was trying to, whether he was trying to give him a love tap or whatever else. For Stewart to be, criminally responsible for this, he would have either had to have intentionally hit Ward, and evidence supporting such a claim would have to be produced, or he's going to have to be found to have behaved negligently. I did have one more question for our buddy Frank Drebin.
Okay.
Which is,
Yeah, go ahead.
have you ever seen anybody get out on a course like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've actually seen Tony Stewart do that. He's or in person or on TV, because Tony Stewart.
Well, I guess even on TV,
numerous times.
I'm not familiar enough with racing to know that Tony Stewart has done that, and maybe you could explain that, because that to me it just seems, I don't know, it just seems like there's a sport out of control when you've got cars even at caution going by 40, 45 miles an hour, and somebody standing in the middle of the street trying to call one out. I don't know. I wouldn't do that in my normal life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, what I. But
so I'm wondering if this is rare, this is common, this is part of the showmanship of the sport. This is, some people have said, this gets to NASCAR's marketing campaign of the boys are back. I could see a brawl in the pits probably isn't between teams. Probably isn't on the danger scale of somebody standing in the middle of the track, pointing at passing cars. That would scare me. Like on a real freeway, that would scare me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would scare me. Everybody.
That would scare me. I mean, I would just be, even if I'm in a car, that would scare me if somebody's walking in the middle of lanes, pointing at people. I'd be freaked out. So I'm just trying to figure out, how much of this is, maybe it's become part of the bravado of auto racing, or is this really not the norm and is something that rules can take care of? Because rules are going to have to take care of it.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be rules there'll probably be a point deduction all the way up to the Sprint Cup, or some kind of suspension. But yeah, I've seen Tony Stewart get out, and he's actually thrown his helmet at another car that's been passing him.
Yeah,
and he was about as close as one was to his car last night, throwing his helmet. And I mean, I've seen guys get out and try and jump in another moving car while they're arguing with him. And this happens a lot, especially at short tracks. If you guys want to go to Irwindale next time I'm there, I'll give you guys tickets. You'll probably see that. Someone would get out of their car, point at another car, flip them off, and do all kinds of that DX thing around the crotch, all that.
I remember
That's not.
Carl Edwards. I don't know if it was Matt. I don't know if this was last year or the year before, but his car caught air, and he went flying into the safety netting, and actually injured some fans. And then his car rolled over. He unbuckled and got out of his car and ran to the finish line because he had caught air right around turn 4. Do you remember the race I'm talking about, where he just sprinted to the finish line like it was it was like Talladega Nights. Was it at Talladega?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it was actually at Talladega too.
Yeah, because totally a scene out of a Will Ferrell movie.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it was at Talladega, and he got thrown into the catch fence, and his car was destroyed, and he got out and ran, but to the finish line. But I remember in the rule book I used to have to follow, anytime a driver got out of his car before the race was over or before there was a caution flag thrown, like he did, he'd be disqualified. So he probably passed the line running, but he still got disqualified.
One last question for you. Oh, I now remember my big question here. It was, that guy gets out of it. Kevin Ward gets out of his car. Is the guy that's in the driver's ears? Is he telling them there's a person on the track?
He probably might have not even noticed, but I'm sure they were expecting people to be walking out of their car, but not running down toward the racing line.
So that's.
So I'm sure they probably heard something like incident outside of turn 2. Stay low, caution.
Where's the guy who? What do you call him who's speaking into the racer's ear on the one-way?
It probably. I think in sprint cars they call it track judge, and in NASCAR it's an official.
Is the track judge, is he sitting in a way that he has like a view of the whole track and what's going on, or is he watching like, in an office on circuit TV or something like that? How does that typically work?
Yeah, most tracks usually have an elevated point, like a tower, where that track official, as well as like spotters for the race, will be looking down onto the track. So he's got a view of pretty much everything going on the track.
Right, and that, hopefully is communicating that to the driver, or what he can see to the drivers.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if he was talking to them, that'll come out in the investigation.
Yeah. Alex, we've gone through some of these bullet points. You want to hit a few, or some that are interesting to you?
I thought your points about when you talked about where this goes moving forward in terms of is this part of the culture? Because I think there's a parallel to be drawn between. I feel like I read recently that there are some racing purists who think it's a good idea that, this is a little bit outside of what happened last night, but that some of these beefs between drivers should be settled, after the race, fist to fist. I think there's an interesting parallel between sports like hockey and that sort of thing, where you have purists talking about the need for fighting to still exist, which is all fine until you have a situation like this.
Yeah, well, in hockey, you don't have the Zamboni running between the players when they pull
right, but you end up
sweaters
with,
off each other.
Let's say you have a bad fight and you end up with a guy getting, beat severely. Then you have a different discussion on, okay, because my problem again, I'll harp on this point again. My problem is exactly what Matt said about. I remember as a non-car racing fan, I remember very vividly ESPN running on their not-so-top 10 segment over and over, Tony Stewart, getting out of his car, waiting for this dude to come back around and whipping his helmet, and everybody thought it was just the funniest thing in the world, blah, blah, blah. And here we sit now with a totally tragic circumstance, and again, I don't trust that the debate being had will educate me as to, was this a one-off, or was this part, this weird part of the culture that just went wrong? And I think it's going to be important for them moving forward, because NASCAR is a growing sport. It's not my deal, but I look at it as a growing sport in terms of where it was when I was a kid to what I see on television now. And I think it's something that they're going to have to grapple with after this nonsensical debate about who is right and who is wrong. To your point, is this part of the culture? And then can rules address this to the point where a guy that's so angry on the track will say, oh, I want to get out and beat this guy's ass, but no, the rules say I shouldn't get out of my car. I'm not sure that that's possible.
Hey, Matt, here's another question for you. Rules bodies, governing bodies, etc. As I understand, NASCAR is owned by a family, and they take the thing out to various track owners and whatever else through the country, on their tour each year. How about like the sanctioning bodies of these dirt track races? Are they typically small organizations, and even the circuits of them, are they owned by, say, a small group, small company, small family, something like that?
Yes, it's typically a small group. This one they have their own names. They're spread out across the county, or across the country actually, and like the main one is USAC and there's also ASCS, which are probably the two biggest ones, and then there's a web of smaller affiliate sprint car leagues. So
How cooperative
yeah,
are they on safety issues and things like that?
no, they're very cooperative. There's been too many deaths when it first started. They actually have made the cars slower than I remember them being, but they're still really, really fast. They implement a lot of the same safety features that NASCAR have, like the Hans device, that you have to have a certain restraint in your car. I think now they're up to a 5-point restraint, which is 2 belts over the shoulder, 2 over the waist, and 1 between your legs, to strap you into the car. And pretty much they're big on safety. So
yeah, and this isn't one of those things where there's not a lot of government influence or interference, in the safety rules and stuff. It's these private organizations that set the rules for their races, and you have to comply with them. And I guess what you're saying is that there's a lot of sharing between these, so that when one thing gets implemented, at the NASCAR level, if it's reasonable enough to implement at the lower levels, they tend to do that too.
yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Because they go off NASCAR usually, since NASCAR could afford to have these scientists and safety personnel come in and figure out what's safest for the drivers, and then they'll usually pass it on down, since a lot of dirt drivers actually end up in NASCAR.
Oh, so there's a lot of mobility between these circuits, I guess. That's something to note as well.
Yes.
Yeah. What you got, Cobb? Pick something.
I was just, I don't really have anything more to say from a racing angle, but you were talking about criminality earlier, and I don't really know what's going to happen with the legal logistics of this incident, but just from like a playground or play school recess kind of thing, you have a situation where both parties are wrong. One party was wrong for getting out of the vehicle, and another party, well, we don't know if he was wrong or not, because we don't know if what he gave his statement to the authorities said, where he fishtailed, whether he fishtailed or not, or whether there was intent to injure the other party. But regardless of intention, he did do something wrong, and that caused this person to die, to get thrown and then die from the injuries from being thrown.
His car collided with someone. I mean, it
right.
could very well be something like, yeah, but sometimes, Cobb, like you're driving on the freeway and you hear about this occasionally, as somebody falls off an overpass or something like that and onto the windshield of somebody passing by. Mm-hmm. That person passing by will probably feel like crap for the rest of their life. It's not their fault. It's absolutely not. There's absolutely nothing they could have done, nothing they could have expected. If this is a case where Tony Stewart could not expect that there would be a person standing in the middle of the road, and then all of a sudden he comes upon him and he cannot control his vehicle, he's obeying the caution but cannot control his vehicle to avoid hitting him in some fashion. Well, that could very well be the case. And when you see the first, if you saw the, of course everybody here has seen the film, but if you see the first car that passes him, just before Tony Stewart hits him, it sure looks like that guy just tries to get out of the way as quickly as he can, as if there's this object, there's this person in the road that's not expected, from the path that guy was going to take around that turn, and he's got to get out of the way of it. If that's the case, you can't do anything. Now, there's this whole public backlash and public opinion thing. Is Tony Stewart doing the right things in addressing this? Should he race today? Should he not? Those kinds of questions which, try to get to his mindset and things. And there's a certain crowd that thinks, well, Tony Stewart, he's a bad guy anyway. He's a jerk. This is finally this is the accumulation of him being a jerk. And he finally hit somebody and killed him because he's a jerk. And they're gonna call for his head. When a prosecutor comes down on this, and a prosecutor's got to figure out what's going on, and he's gonna interview Tony Stewart. He's gonna find any other evidence that's available. It seems like we've only got one video shot of this right now that's shot from the stands. Strangely, the guy who shot the video from the stands, it was like a feature film on Kevin Ward. How weird is that?
What do you
I mean, when
what do
you think
mean?
about it. Well, I mean, the
Oh, he
video,
was following his car. You mean?
he was following his car through this.
Yeah.
You know, and the guy who took that video was not like one of Kevin Ward's people. He was following his car. The car gets stuck in the wall, and so he stuck with that car, and then he stuck with Kevin Ward as he's working his way down the track on foot. And
yeah.
I mean that to me that struck me as a little bit. I don't know. I there's a lot of things I've filmed, and I guess I probably would key in on the impending disaster. I guess that's me.
Yeah.
But
does anybody know? Yeah, that is weird. Does anybody know what place Kevin Ward was in, what place Tony Stewart was in, and how far into the race they were? How much of the race was left?
They were about halfway through the race. I think it was like the 14th or 35 laps, and neither of them were in contention.
Okay, so this
And
is
both
just
of
like
them-
a back of the pack kind of jostling.
Middle of the pack kind of jostling.
Middle pack
yeah.
jostling.
Yeah.
Okay.
The,
So that does, yeah.
But getting back to your question, Cobb, a prosecutor might look at this, and a prosecutor might say, well, this is awful, and we don't really have anything that we can, we don't have any slam dunk evidence that says that Tony Stewart knew he was going to come around and he was going to just take this guy out with his car, this guy on foot. But we could bring charges anyway, and we could,
Right, because there's
we could
fault.
say, well, not because there's fault, not necessarily because there's fault, but because there is a mentality that somebody needs to be held accountable for something, and it could very well be just a tragic set of circumstances, and the prosecutor
that is
could be
absolutely what
pressured-
they are.
Well, no, but what I mean by a tragic set of circumstances where Tony Stewart did not intend, want, or anything else to have anything to do with hitting this guy. Okay? It could very well be that. The prosecutor could look at this and he could say the public demands accountability here. And he could bring charges against Tony Stewart that might rely on evidence such as, what was his demeanor? Have they had a history or something? What was his demeanor after the race? What was this? Did he, there's this thing about that his mechanic changed out the right rear tire immediately when Tony Stewart got to the garage. What was that trying to? Was that trying to get rid of evidence? Etc. So a prosecutor could look at that and say, I don't have any evidence that he actually did this act, but there's things around it that say, he needs to be held accountable for something. And then you get into the negotiation of, okay, well, what are you gonna cop to, Tony? And yet it still could very well be Tony's driving along, and then there's some dude that's just standing there, and he has no time to do anything with the car to completely avoid him, and ends up hitting him. That could very well be the situation. And that's what's so dangerous about,
we just don't know. We don't know when the caution came out. We don't know what the time frame was. Matt, how many turns ahead can a race car driver see on one of these sprint car tracks? Can you see 2 turns ahead?
Not really. It's because it's so much of a curve. You can't see the turn 2 if you're going into turn 1. You can. It's kind of like a split-second deal if you're going in there as fast as they are. Even under caution,
Would there be a warning with the caution being like driver out of his cart? Drivers go left, driver. We have a driver out of his cart, something like that. Would those kind of warnings go out over the radio, over the one-way radio?
They might have. If I'm not sure if this series requires them, but I know most series require a driver having a one-way radio. But if you look around the track, you see blinking bright yellow lights every time there's a caution. So obviously you should be going slow.
Right. Okay.
Is there a level above caution? Say that I don't know, to a layman just looking at this, a caution would mean you need to slow down and you need to stay out of the way of things on the track that you don't want to run over or run into, and you'd be cautious of. But is there some layer of some escalation of caution, which is just stopping your car because nothing's passable?
Yeah, well, if a crash is bad enough, they'll put the red flag out, which requires all drivers to stop immediately behind the pace car. Okay. If it's bad enough where you can't avoid debris, or there's just too big of an incident to go around.
And that's something that's just universally understood. So that's kind of in the vocabulary of the racers and the track manager and the safety officials, etc.
Right.
Okay. And in this case, that wasn't deployed. In this case, a simple caution was deployed.
Yeah, just simple slow down and falling behind the pace car is what the yellow flag was.
Got it.
Okay.
Alex, what do you think about? What do you think in the future? Let's assume this didn't turn out to be criminal, but just simply tragic. What's the long-term effect that you see on Stewart's reputation and legacy?
Oh, I think in today's media environment, those that did not like him before last night, will have further ammunition. Those that defend him, look on Twitter. It's just a battle between. Everything is just a battle between he did it on purpose and shame on that guy for getting out of the car, which is so simplistic, and kind of goes back to my first question, if both can be possible. But I don't, to your point about accountability, I think they're going to need to leave people feeling as though somebody was responsible for it. And even though I said at the beginning the video looks bad, proving intent, I just do not see how that's possible. I just don't. It's not.
You're going to need other video angles. There was talk that most of the drivers actually ride with GoPro cameras at this point. Who knows if Tony Stewart did. So there might be more angles on this that show what happened, or there might be. If you had a sound recording from Tony Stewart, that idiot, why is he doing this? Oh, there he is. Boom, I'm going to teach him a lesson. Okay, well, that kind of shows what's going on there. But absent that, it's going to be difficult to assess.
I think.
But what do you think if you take this?
Go ahead, Cobb.
Even if you take this off the track, let's just put this in a completely take it out of car racing. If let's say you're cruising down the 405 at 5 o'clock and you're doing about 55, which already this story is unrealistic considering the 405.
Right, it's either 80 or it's either 80 or 20. It's the 80-20 rule.
Or 8.
Yeah, and there's some Yahoo in the middle of the road, and the same scenario plays out. Even if you're taking it out and then applying real laws to that, I don't know how somebody says, oh, Brad deliberately did this, or even if you had an issue with that driver and then they get out. It's just so problematic, and
it's a real step
with
up.
the way things.
Yeah. In real life, this does happen. It does. It happens with bicyclists. It happens with you have cars on like windy roads or thin, like just single lane roads. And there'll be a bicyclist there, and a car will get upset that this bicyclist is only going 15 or 20 miles an hour on a single lane road, and they're taking up the whole lane. That sometimes cars get cute trying to get around these bicycles, and they end up getting too close, and there's been fatalities because of it.
Yeah,
so it does happen in real life. But this is fault with intent. We still need not we, but the investigators, they still need to find out if this is fault with intent or if this is fault without intent. And back to Tony Stewart's legacy, I think a lot of his legacy, whether you were pro Tony or against Tony prior to this incident, is will the Ward family find justice? Are they going to find justice with what comes out of this investigation? I don't know. That's just a question for the air.
Yeah. Well, Alex, will they find justice?
There's no justice. Your 20-year-old kid, dies for any reason. There's no justice.
Yeah, we don't have like a winner for what do we call it, Cobb? Topical tweets.
Topical tweet.
Yeah, but if that were a topical tweet, that would win, Alex. Your winning streak would be intact. That's exactly the point. 20-year-old kid is dead. There's no justice in that at all. It's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
It's been my big problem with those arguing on the side of, because I see both arguments. That's my thing. That's what I do. I rarely allow myself to be lulled into some simplistic idea that this is the answer unless it's so obvious to everybody that what's the point of even discussing it in the first place. But that being said, one of my problems with the he shouldn't have gotten out of the car thing is it's just so it can come off, at least in a Twitter atmosphere, as a lack of empathy. I mean, ultimately, these folks will be burying their child in a few days, and there's just nothing. I can't imagine a scenario where I feel any amount of vindication. It would not matter to me that it's Tony Stewart or a more likable guy. I don't know who that would be, but there's just no justice. I mean, and that's my frustration, is that I hope after this ridiculous discussion that I know ESPN will have is done, that they do something from a rules standpoint, really address it within their culture, so that at bare minimum, I don't think anybody could ever say it will never happen again. But so many of these discussions we're not any better off for, whether we're talking about Ray Rice, whether we're talking about, it fills these little vacuums of time needed to quote-unquote entertain us. And then when they're done, you look back and you say, what did any of us, what have we gained? What moving forward will be beneficial to us? And
what have you even learned?
If you can find those answers, then you're better than me, because oftentimes I didn't come away from Ray Rice saying, like, okay, well, you know what, this definitely won't happen again, and or Ray Rice is cool moving forward. I didn't come away with any of that. I came away thinking, like, this was just fodder for people to debate, and nothing was actually done. And okay, great, so nobody likes Roger Goodell. Well, I'm not sure he should have been liked in the first place. So where are we now?
All that fodder
Matt,
feeds into the Baltimore fans giving Ray Rice a standing ovation.
Yeah. And Matt, I'll tell you what I've learned.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna jump in here. Matt, I'll tell you what I've learned today, which is that really surprised me, is that the getting out of the car thing is, while it's, on the face incredibly stupid, that there's a part of the competitiveness of racing that, I could hear it in your tone, which is, well, yeah, I mean, your tone to me was, yeah, it's incredibly stupid, but at the same time, this is kind of part of the, it's at the edges of what the game is right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And for one thing, I wanted to mention is Tony Stewart is going to lose probably a lot of his sponsorship from this.
Yeah.
And I mean, how many athletes do you see going? I mean, what happened to Tiger Woods and Gatorade pulled out from his sponsor? And there's been other drivers whose sponsorship has been, questioned because of their off-track things. I mean, one guy got a DUI, and I think Interstate Battery pulled out as sponsorship. So,
no, this isn't going to be. They could, the whole world could come out and say, look, I mean, there could be completely exculpatory evidence that says Tony Stewart did not even see this guy until he was 4 feet away from his tire, and the sponsor's not going to want anything to do with him. That's just too toxic. It's way too toxic. There's too much bad stuff there. So yeah, that's definitely a consequence. How about we wrap this up?
Sounds good.
Cobb wanted to have a short TMV today because he's got dad things to do. So I tried to keep it short for him.
Yeah. Well, I got to sell my house now, so I got to do that too.
Oh, very good. Very good.
So, Matt,
thank you. Yep, Matt, thank you very, very, very much for providing some some like real world insight into this. I think it
was my pleasure.
I think that's really helpful. And you're welcome on any time, and we look forward to you getting back on Twitter, and we look forward to hearing how your progress in school is going and stuff too, because
I forgot to tell you, I got rid of my Twitter. I aced my English class over the summer, so
awesome.
It's going well.
Awesome.
All right, go Matt.
We can't wait for Matt Garcia Sports.
Yeah, me either. It's long overdue.
All right, buddy. I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much.
See you, Matt.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care.
Hey, Cobb. See you, Alex.
Later.
Alex. Thank you for joining us. We didn't get to do any weather talk other than, like they wet down the track.
No, yeah, I really appreciate you guys lobbing me the softball of you finally get me on the show, and it's like I imagine you calling Cobb this morning. Dude, did you hear about the Tony Stewart news? We got to get Alex on because sarcasm and cynicism, that's what this situation needs.
Alex and I being
like
completely restrained, having to be thoughtful. Yeah, it was it was a tough hour, dude. It was a very tough hour.
Yeah, you guys had me on with and brought me in with a pair of handcuffs.
Well, you of course are welcome on any time. This was very good, and I think Cobb and I are going to try to do more of these where we bring on the Warriors and sit in and extended talk an issue, rather than planning out bits and stuff for a while. So anytime you want on, you and Travanti are welcome on anytime you want. If you want to come on every week, it'd be okay.
Yeah, I don't have to be the quote-unquote co-host, but I still do have a great weather talk bit. We've had a lot of storms, and my dad has been in rare form, so I have a really good one ready to go for you whenever you guys are ready.
All right, we'll do it next time. And next time could be next week. Whatever you want to do, just let me know, okay?
Awesome.
All right, let's
Thanks, Alex.
Cobb.
Hey, thanks, guys, for including me.
Wait, say that one more time. Say that one more time, because I recorded over you. I'll just split it in right.
Thanks for including me.
Say it one more time, because I talked over you.
Come on. Thanks for including me.
All right, you're welcome. See if our thank yous are good here. I'm going to thank Manuel, thank Alex, and I should thank Matt by his real name, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. All right, I've got it.
Hey, what happened to Frank Drebin? I didn't know that Frank was gone. I didn't know who I was talking to about midway in. I'm like, wait a second, this is Frank Drebin.
Well, I think he's a lot of people are taking time off from Twitter. It could be a real drag on a lot of things, but don't do that, Alex.
Yeah, don't go anywhere, Alex.
No, I can't. Contrary to what you might think, I'm actually quite the introvert in real life, so Twitter is one of the few forums in which I can clear the cache of my brain, and
that's
so
good.
I'm not sure I could get along, for a long time without Twitter.
Very good. All right. And there's nothing wrong with it either. I mean, if you need to take a break for whatever reason, you need to take a break. And there's every reason I've heard lately is a good reason, and I'm not going to argue with anybody.
Sure.
Although I'm going to miss them. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So I want people to come back because I miss them. Anyway, let's.
Yeah.
I did the rewind, right, Cobb? Yeah.
Yeah, you could do it again.
All right, we'll do the thank you bump. By the way, Alex, you're suspended.
Oh, yeah? What'd I do?
Yeah. I don't know yet, but you're suspended for the rest of the show.
You're suspended for not giving us a weather update on the PGA Championship.
There you go.
Can I suspend you guys?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Suspend us too. Sure, go ahead.
But only with reason.
All right. Okay, fine. You guys are suspended.
All right, but I still have to do
talk Tony Stewart.
All right, I still have to do the thank yous though. Thank you to Manuel and Gardena for his weekly wrap-up. Thanks to Alex Hernandez for sitting in with us today. Thanks for Matt Garcia. That would be Frank Drebin, but soon to be of Matt Garcia Sports. Matt Garcia Sports! For his racing expertise and what we hope is the last heavy discussion we ever have on the TMV. And thanks to the listeners, whether you listened live or on the podcast, for giving us an hour of your time. Thanks to Jay Cobb for doing the videocast with me.
Thank you, Brad. Let us know what you thought of today's show on Twitter. #TheTMV. The edited podcast will be up on Monday evening for you to enjoy during the week. We'll see you next Sunday afternoon at a regular time for another fun hour of the TMV.
Okay, is our suspension over? Alex?
Yes.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's
Because
not.
the Tony Stewart thing, if we were on Twitter right now, I would have already tweeted you something along the lines of, Wow, this is super sad. I wish Alex Hernandez was here. Signed, Brad at Schindler's List screening.
Dude, you are the absolute best. Don't let anybody tell you different. Well,
They do, but I don't believe them.
all right. So do you know last song well enough to sing along? Alex?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I do not know. No, I do not.
All right, well, if you pick it up, you can sing along.
All right, sure.
Last song. You made it to the last song. Only when you listen, to the end. Last song. You made it to the last song. It only
Jambalaya?
Okay, now you can scat.
All that.
Nothing from Cobb, huh?
Bap.
I don't think so.
All right, thank you guys. We're gonna stop the broadcast.